Hello fellow Star Wars fans, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Star Wars Canon. If you catch the show every week, you know that every single week I break it down for you guys, from the comics to the novels to the video games to TV, anything else that relates to the Star Wars movies. I love to talk about it. So this week we have a jam-packed amount of canon. We have some new comics, a new novel, and an update in Star Wars Battlefront 2. So let's start off with the novel. So this is Star Wars Last Shot. This is a tie-in novel for Solo, a Star Wars story, which is quickly approaching. Cool thing about this novel is it's got a reversible cover where you have Lando, or you can have Han Solo on the cover there. I got this from Barnes & Noble, which included a really cool movie poster. You got Han and you got Lando in style right there. So yes, this is written by Daniel Jose Older. So that name might be familiar to you if you've read From a Certain Point of View. He did a story about a stormtrooper on a dupek. So yeah, he's a really good writer for these two characters of Lando and Han, because this story is infused with a lot of humor. And just so you know, I'm about 50 pages in, so these are my first impressions of the novel. I hope to have that review out to you guys as soon as possible. So this picks up pretty much about 2 years, I think, after the Battle of Jakku. So we have a young Ben Solo, we have Han who's struggling to be a father, and that's kind of his storyline so far is, you know, how do I accomplish being a father that's not going to screw up? Then you have Lando Calrissian, on the other hand, who has a bit of a problem with perhaps settling down with a significant other that he has been around. He isn't sure if that's what he wants to do yet. But then there is this other plot that links together Han and Lando, and that is of this old criminal who is coming back into the fold because he thinks that either Han or Lando or whoever owns the Millennium Falcon at this point has stolen something that he wants back. So he basically has said, okay, I'm going to destroy Cloud City in about 3 days if you guys don't give me back this special transmitter thing. So that is kind of where I've gotten so far, and I'm really liking the story, especially with the humor. We're getting a little bit of flashbacks, which I want to mention. You do have a flashback of Lando before the events of Solo, a Star Wars story, and I'm trying to put it together in a timeline, and I think it takes place about 10 years before A New Hope. And then we have another story, which is maybe about 4 years before A New Hope. So this is when Han has, met Chewie already. They have the Falcon at this point. And this is also a story where Santa Starros is introduced. So yes, we have a crossover between the Marvel Star Wars comics now, and figuring out how exactly Han basically made her his wife for a short amount of time. So, like I said, so far I'm very much enjoying this novel. Look forward to doing a review for you guys sometime very soon. So moving on to the Marvel Comics, the first one I want to talk about is Poe Dameron issue number 26. And this is a milestone for the series because we start off a new arc, and it is called The Awakening Part 1. So this is a milestone not for only the comic, but for Star Wars canon in the timeline as a whole. This is the first kind of stuff we're getting that takes place after The Last Jedi. So just to frame it up for you guys, we do have Poe, we have Finn, and we have Rey having a conversation for pretty much the first time, all three of them together. And what this is, they're on the Falcon after the Battle of Crate, and they're like, okay, we have some time, we have some peace at this given moment. Let's kind of talk about where each other kind of went in the meantime. So we do kind of go back into the timeline with Poe Dameron, and we go right before he gets to Jakku. We have him talking to Leia, and she's like, oh, I got the message from Lord Santeca. He's on Jakku with the map of Skywalker. So that's kind of where it goes right into the events of the Force Awakens. Force Awakens. So that is really cool. And we get, like, if you guys have read the novelization of Force Awakens, if you have played one of the levels in the Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, you will know that there's that part of the game or the book where Poe Dameron escapes the TIE fighter. He meets this one alien out in the desert of Jakku, and then they get on a speeder and there's this chase. So yes, all that is kind of glazed back over again, which is kind of nice for people that haven't experienced that. They'll experience it in the comic. So that to me was really freaking cool. And we go right up to the point of him getting back to Takodana and then Leia saying, hey, looks like BB-8 is on Takodana. That means the First Order is going to be pretty close behind. You're going to have to get over there and get them out of there. So that's kind of where this issue of Poe Dameron leaves off. So talking more in depth about the things that I like about this issue is, first off, just this is groundbreaking for the comics to actually go past the movie for once. So this is kind of telling me, now we don't have confirmation yet, that this could go further into the timeline than we expected initially. So we know that the script by J.J. Abrams is pretty much complete. He has handed in. They're going to start shooting episode 9 in, I think, July. So that means that they're going to probably know a good portion of what is in that gap between, well, the gap that I think is going to happen between The Last Jedi and episode 9. I'm thinking there's going to be a couple year gap. So maybe Lucasfilm is saying, okay, you guys can start like fleshing in some of that story content if they already know what kind of happens in there. So yeah, it's just really neat seeing, first off, just seeing Rey in a comic and seeing her talking to Finn and Poe. It's just classic right there. And I'm happy that they actually had the confidence of doing that. Now, granted, it's not anything earth-shattering, but again, it gives us potential for what might come in the future. This also tells us about why the rest of Black Squadron wasn't on Jakku with Poe. They didn't want to draw too much attention, which is something you could assume, to the planet of Jakku, so they sent one person in an X-Wing. And yeah, I like the canon about how it connects with the Lego game, how it connects with the novelization, which we know part of it isn't canon anymore because Poe and Rey never actually met at the end of The Force Awakens. But that's besides the point. So yeah, it's good seeing the story group kind of reaching in, pulling some other elements in there, although we do get a better look at why Poe got shot out of the TIE Fighter, because his coat was kind of on the ejector mechanism, so he had to actually crash land the TIE Fighter. He was the one that actually hit the eject button for Finn to fly out, so we do get that a little bit more fleshed out. And finally, I want to praise the artwork in this. So this looks great. Characters like Rey and characters like Finn look great on the pages there, so very happy with the artwork so far, and I cannot wait for this next issue. And the other comic that came out this week is actually by IDW, and it is Star Wars Adventures issue number 9. So we always have two stories. The first one is called Trouble Again. This is between C-3PO and R2. So at this point, we are in the point between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope, somewhere in there. And we do know that C-3PO is on board of what looks like the Tantive 4, and he's with Captain Antilles. And it looks like C-3PO is trying to keep some distance from R2-D2, but then there's this other seeker droid that is kind of in the fray and kind of in a mix of things, and C-3PO is kind of just doing his duties on the ship until he is known by R2 discovering that the seeker droid is in fact a spy for the Imperials. So by the end of the story, we do see that C-3PO and R2-D2 work together through whatever strife they had previously to come to an agreement that, yes, they have to work together to get destroyed. And then Antilles is very appreciative and doesn't wipe their memory for kind of turning up the ship. So that's basically the story in a nutshell. So again, to the things that I liked was, first off, seeing Antilles, seeing the Tantive 4, 5, whatever it's called. I'm forgetting it right now. But anyways, it's always nice seeing those stories, because there's got to be a lot of stories with the Tantive, because we know in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, she's kind of taking command of that ship, and she's like 16 years old at this point. She wasn't on the ship at all in this one, so I'm thinking this is a little bit before that. But it is good seeing C-3PO not in the companionship with Luke or any of the prequel characters, them with Antilles, seeing them on those adventures. Also, I really did enjoy seeing the Seeker droid. It's the same kind of droid, I think, that you see in Battlefront 2, ID-10, the ID-10 droid. I believe it's the same thing almost. Kind of looks like a little pit droid, but yeah, cool little connectivity there. And yeah, of course, it's nice seeing R2 being R2 and C-3PO being rather annoying. So great little story there. The next story we also have is IG-88 versus the Gado Gang. And yes, we got a story with IG-88. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for. When I think of IG-88, I think of IG-88 going around slaughtering his bounties, doing all this vicious stuff. But then again, we are talking about an IDW comic, which is primarily aimed for the younger audience. But it was still a story that didn't like make IG-88 look stupid by any means, because the people he was dealing with were very stupid. So this was all about his mission, his bounty for these 3 aliens, and it's all just them pretty much getting, like, making fun of IG-88 for being a slow droid, and IG-88 is just kind of biding his time and letting these idiots run into murals like something from Looney Tunes, thinking that it's like a long way out of there, and they smash into it, or they like basically mess up their own plans with coordinating these like a little emitter, little tractor beam thingies on the ground that think they're going to get IG-8. They get themselves caught. So a lot of little stuff like that, and you just see IG-88 looking like a badass. First off, he's wearing this like brown cape thing. Kind of looks like one of Grievous's bodyguards in a way, because he's got this like little cover, and I would love an action figure of that. You know, Hasbro, if you can get that out to us, that'd be awesome. And finally, the most important thing about this IG-88 story was that the IG-2000, that's right, IG-88 ship is now canon. That's the ship that you can actually use in Star Wars X-Wing. So yeah, it's always good when they kind of reintroduce these Legends vehicles and ships into canon. And since we're on the topic of comics, I do want to mention that with Star Wars number 50, it will now branch into the Empire Strikes Back era. That's right, we got the July solicitations for Marvel, and they did announce that is going to happen. Kieran Gillen is writing that, and he has been ramping up the Star Wars comics to try to build up the Rebel military force. And oh man, I cannot wait. That probably means we're going to get hopefully into the Shadows of the Empire type era between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and maybe eventually to go past that, past Shattered Empire, into the sequel trilogy. There's a lot of potential, and when you look at it, it's been about 3 years that we've had the Star Wars comics, or more than that, probably more like 3.5 years at this point. So realistically speaking, it's almost been on par with the actual timeline itself. I believe they said it was about 3 years between A New Hope and Empire. So that's kind of cool looking at that in like a realistic kind of meta kind of point. So I'm very much looking forward to July especially. And the last thing I want to talk about this week is Battlefront 2 getting its Night on Endor update. That is the update that has this brand new limited time mode where you actually play as either Stormtroopers or as Ewoks on Endor, and it is all about, if you're the Stormtroopers, you only can get limited to this first person view, and you have a flashlight that has a cooldown. It can become dark when it runs out of batteries. You have to let it recharge. In the meantime, you have these Ewoks that are venturing about, and they have these little slingshot things. They can see in the dark better, and they have these little spears as well as these little horns that make themselves stronger when they blow into the horn, and it's all about them just trying to run around, kill the Stormtroopers. Every time you die as a Stormtrooper, you have to respawn back as an Ewok, and the basis is, if you're an Ewok, you have to destroy all the Stormtroopers to win. If you're a Stormtrooper, you have to survive the allotted amount of time, which is probably something about 10 minutes, and then you have to get to the extraction point on the shuttle to get out of there. And it's just so much fun, because this is something so new for Battlefront 2 as far as a whole new game mechanic. This has never been really anything close to this in the game. It's super fun, and like I said, it's just so interesting from the dynamic of playing as a Stormtrooper versus playing as an Ewok, where you're third person, Stormtrooper, you're first person. It's very, you know, there's this ambiance about it that makes it feel almost like a horror game, because as you're a Stormtrooper, you're looking around in the foliage, and these little Ewoks popping up, making their little noise, and they're trying to kill you. It can be very scary. There's a couple times I literally jumped and screamed a little bit because I wasn't expecting it to happen, and there's so much tension, and it's just so fun. So I'm just really, when I first heard this was announced, I kind of groaned a little bit. But don't sleep on this. This is a limited time event. You gotta try it out. But that wasn't the only thing that came in this update. We got all these cosmetic sort of things. Microtransactions are back up. You can pay for crystals, which will only allow you to buy the cosmetic skins. You can't buy actual stuff that's going to make you pay to win. They took that out. You can only get that through playing the game. So the skins we have the hero skins, like we have Rey, we have Kylo, we have Yoda. They have all these alternate skins, Han and Endor, Leia. We have Chewbacca wounded. You know, we have Lando with his Bespin garb. So there's a lot of cool stuff, but then there's also a lot of skins for the troopers. Namely, I want to point out that the Rebels and the Resistance have some really cool alien skins. I've seen a Weequay, an Aqualish, Duros, Abednego, Twi'lek, Nikto. I mean, the list just keeps going on and on. These aren't the only skins that are going to be in the game. They're going to continually update these. Each skin is worth noting as having a kind of rarity. So there are more of the common skins, which I believe are just the different human faces. But then you can go into your more rare skins, which would be perhaps, for example, the different aliens for the troopers. And then you're going to get into more of your epic skins as far as talking about the hero skins. But then I did hear rumblings that there also might be legendary skins coming out eventually, which will actually change the different ways that the actual character speaks. So I'm really crossing my fingers, not saying this is going to happen, that we might get like a Luke Skywalker in his duel with Kylo costume on Crate. That would be really sweet. And I do want to see more varied skins. So a lot of the skins that came out with the heroes, at least, are very much safe bets. I mean, you're getting characters from the movies. What I want to see is I want to see some of these skins from something like the comics. You know, something that's a little bit more unorthodox, a little bit more of a deep cut for people like myself. And that's reading and you know, digesting all this kind of content. Another thing that was a little bit weird was the lack of Imperial and First Order kind of content. You would think that they would have more skins for that. It looks like right now they only have different skins in the Officer Trooper type. So yeah, and one other thing to note, if you did save up your crafting parts, you can actually use them to get skill points per different class. So you can use them to kind of power level or power boost your cards, your star cards. So good stuff there. I'm very much looking forward to the future of Battlefront 2. They do have this kind of community update that they are doing, I believe, once a month. They're going to be very transparent with the community, which is something that's been very severely lacking over the last few months. You know, BioWare, DICE and EA has been very hard at work at really crafting this into a completely different game. I really urge you guys to try it out. I know next month we are getting Season 2. And, well, what else is coming out next month, guys? A little film called Solo. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some Solo tie-in content. Maybe we'll get a map on Minban or Corellia or Kessel. And I'm sure we're going to get probably skins for a young Han and a young Chewie and a young Lando. There's so much content that is now going to be coming to us in Battlefront 2. That's a very exciting time. So make sure you go ahead and you check out that content if you haven't played Battlefront in a while. It might feel like a brand new game with all this kind of stuff that's been added. So definitely check it out. Next week, you guys can look forward to Dr. Aphra, issue number 19, as well as Darth Vader, issue number 15. So there is a lot that happened this week in Star Wars. I didn't even mention that it was Solo Friday, Force Friday kind of thing. If you watch my Instagram, I put out a story saying I was very disappointed by the retail release of the Solo content. There was a lot of places like Walmart, which didn't have anything. GameStop, I had to actually ask the person if they had any Solo stuff. They had it in the back. They didn't even put it out yet. So, I mean, it's almost a week removed since that. So I'm hoping that most of the stuff is out there for you guys if you want to get like a Range Trooper Black series. I myself picked up a Grand Moff Tarkin, which looks fantastic with that new facial kind of painting style that they use. Very realistic. So yeah, let me know if you guys went out and got some Solo stuff. What did you pick up? Let's talk about that in the comment section. As well as, are you playing Battlefront 2? Do you plan on playing it? Are you reading the Star Wars Adventures comics? Are you reading Last Shot? Do you enjoy it? And how about that Poe Dameron issue number 26? Let's talk all about it in that comment section below. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I talk about Star Wars on a weekly basis. So if you like this video, I want to see more and don't want to miss any other future videos, make sure you go over there and hit that subscribe button. It's going to help me out a lot and it'll keep you guys up to speed on everything I have coming out. So that is going to do it for me, Starrapter. May the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.